Okay, and as Ian said, my name's Kevin DeRocher, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about communication. Do you remember the last time that you had to communicate to a group or to an individual and win them over to your way of thinking? How did it feel?
Kevin, I don't know why, but I
For
can't
me,
see your presentation. I don't know if anyone else can is having
uh,
an issue.
no, I turned it to a blank screen,
My apologies.
and we'll talk about that later. So it is purposely a blank screen. So if you go here, it'll be my screen. So okay, so how did it feel? Were you a little bit nervous? Did you struggle putting your thoughts together? And were you able to get that call to action that you were looking for? Doesn't have to be that way. There's some simple strategies we're going to talk about today where you can grab your audience's attention, keep it, and get your call to action at the end. Some of these you'll be able to start using right away without any practice. A couple will take some practice. As we go along today, you don't have to take notes if you don't want to, because this is being recorded, but you may want to jot a few notes. So if you have a pen and paper, that would be great too. That way you don't have to come back and watch the entire video. But as we go, if you have questions, feel free to just jump in. It's a small group, it's a personal group. So let's just go ahead. And if you have a question, either raise your hand or unmute. And as Ian said, just jump in with your question. Be happy to answer them as we go along. So what we're going to talk about today are these topics: selecting your speaking style. Then we're going to go on to 5 basic steps in grabbing your audience's attention, 6 nuances in public speaking that will help you connect with your audience better, and then adapting to your audience. That section is going to be on how to talk to different types of people. How do you talk to plant management? How do you talk to operations management? How do you talk to fellow maintenance people, your boss, people that work for you? So we're going to cover all those. And then at the end, we'll pause for questions. But like I said, if you have questions as we go along, don't hesitate to ask. So let's talk about selecting your speaking style first. There isn't any one right style. You don't have to copy other speakers. Be yourself. You have to be true to yourself. And as you see other styles, adapt and say, hey, I like the way this person speaks. Maybe I will try to incorporate that into my style of speaking. And the way I talk about this a little bit is we have some people that are really excitable speakers. Now, I'm one of those. I get excited. I'm all over and I am just passionate. There are other people that are a little bit more dry or monotone, and there's nothing wrong with that either. You can still get the message across. And the way I try to demonstrate that is, hopefully many of you have heard of a singer, Eric Clapton. And when I was young, he had a song, a rock and roll song, Layla. And it was a hard driving rock and roll song. I loved it. But then many years later, he came out with an acoustic version of it that was slow and it was gentle. And people like that too. Some people like that one better than the hard driving rock and roll version. But he communicated with people through both methods. So both worked. One that hit the hard rock and roll group, another that people that were more mellow, more laid back, like the acoustic version of the song Layla. So you don't have to have one specific style to get your message across. It can be done in different ways. Just make sure it is you that is talking and you're not coming across as somebody that's a phony on the stage, somebody that's not you. If your personality is a little bit more laid back, be a little bit more laid back in your speaking. If you're an excitable person, don't turn that switch and just be completely laid back and not be yourself. People will see that. And especially if they know you, they're going to say, what's wrong with him? That's not him or her. So you want to make sure your speaking style matches your personality, who you are. Hey, so I think there are 5 basics I'm covering today on how to grab your audience's attention. And the first is you have 30 seconds to get your audience's attention. If you start off with, hi, I'm Kevin, I'm doing this, I'm that, they're going to tune out. Start immediately with something that makes them want to listen to you. What did I do? I started off. Do you remember the last time you had to speak to a group of people or an individual? How did you feel? I didn't go into the pleasantries or tell some corny joke. I immediately appealed to your senses. So the first thing you want to do is get their attention in that first 30 seconds. Some studies even say 20 seconds. But if you do not have your audience's attention by then, it's hard to get it. So start off with getting their attention. And how do you do that? It's what's in it for me. We're a selfish society. And you have to get to what's in it for your audience immediately. You can't be jumping around and say, why am I listening to this person? Why am I here? And in your call to action, include what's in it for the person too. So at the very end, you want to let them know what they're going to get from listening to you. How will they benefit from hearing you speak? What are you going to teach them? Because if they know that, they say, you know what, that may help me. And yes, I want to do that. In a maintenance setting, that may be when you're talking about, well, we've had a lot of downtime lately. And what if I told you there was a solution for reducing downtime by 5%, 2%, whatever it may be, or reducing costs by X%? Would you be interested in hearing about that? Now you've got them on the edge of their seat listening because they are concerned, especially if they're an operation manager, plant manager, your maintenance manager, whoever it may be, they are interested in how to get that bottom line better, how to improve safety, how to improve your environmental impact, how to improve costs, how to improve efficiency. All these things are important. And if you let them know right up front, this is what I'm going to work at teaching you today or giving you a solution for, they're going to want to listen. Ask questions. What did I do? Do you remember the last time you spoke to a group of people? Would it interest, shock, or amaze or surprise you to know? Uh, have you ever worried about downtime on the equipment when you're at home at night having dinner with your family? Get them thinking about things that are important to them. How often have you ever felt this or thought about this or experienced this? Do you remember the last time I was in the brewing industry? The bottle filler was down on line 5. Boy, we were worried we couldn't get it up. Do you ever want to experience that feeling again? What if I told you we have some solutions so we could minimize the risk of that happening again? So you're asking these questions and you're piquing their interest. They don't have to be questions they answer. They can be rhetorical questions, but ask them questions to get them thinking. You want them thinking with you, and you want to make sure they're engaged by asking them a question and then pausing for a few seconds after you ask that question. They have to think about that answer. So you get them thinking and you get them pulled into what you're talking about. So questions are a very powerful tool for doing that. Now, this is one that is a little controversial. My wife hates it, but it's making them feel pain. And I did this to you at the very beginning. So I'm going to go back to that page. Uh, do you remember the last time? Is this thing I started with it? Well, how did it feel when we had that production line down and we took that again? Do you lose sleep worrying about your budget? Whatever it may be, you make them feel a little bit of pain. And once again, now they want to listen because you come in after you have them feel a little bit of pain as that knight in shining armor, that person that has a solution, that person that can help solve their problem. So by doing this, you're once again getting them to say, wow, I do remember the last time I had to speak to a group and I was uncomfortable and I stumbled. I had a hard time getting my message across. And maybe if I listen to this, it will help me. So you want to do that same thing when you're talking to whatever audience you're talking to. Make them feel a little bit of pain. And I know it can be set up poorly. You don't want to go overboard on it, but make them realize they have a problem and that you have the possible solution for them. That's an important step in the process. They have to realize that they have a problem first. So make them realize there is a problem here that the person I'm talking to can potentially solve. What else did I do in the beginning? I set up the journey. So I told you what you would gain by listening. I told you you would learn some skills that you could start using immediately and that would help you improve your communication, where you could grab your audience's attention, keep it, and get your call to action. I talked about how hard it will be. I told you some of the things you can start using right away. They'll be simple. Some of them will be a little bit harder to learn and it will take you some time and some practice. And when can you expect results? I told you you're going to have some immediate results with some of the things you're going to hear today because you'll be able to do them right away and start right away. And a lot of people like that. If you can have those quick gains for that person, something that happens immediately that will help them, especially at low cost when you're talking in the maintenance field, that's important. And sometimes you can't do that. So sometimes it's going to be long term and you have to make sure they know that up front. This will take us some time, but if we take these steps in 6 months, in a year, however long it will be, we can get there and we can measure that along the way. Outline your presentation. I told you what you're going to hear today because a lot of times when somebody's speaking, people think, okay, I wonder what's next. What am I going to learn? I told you exactly where we're going to go. I told you that you could ask questions during this. So you knew what this presentation was about. You knew what we're going to learn. And you can hopefully find something in that outline that interests you and will keep your attention throughout. Will you need anything special? I told you if you want a pen and paper, feel free to write things down. That gave you time to do that before we started speaking. That way, you're not fumbling to find a pad of paper and a pen or something while I'm talking, or a laptop to get out, or a tablet so you can take notes, however you take notes. I'm a little bit older, so I still write things on pieces of paper, but then I scan them into my scanner and I have them convert them to a Word document. So I guess I do them electronically in some ways. But you want to make sure they know if they need something special for the presentation so they're not trying to find that and miss part of your presentation while they're scrambling to get that pad of paper, that tablet out, or their cell phone, whatever they record notes on. And will it be interactive? Sometimes you don't want the audience to jump in and ask questions in the middle. You want to get through the whole presentation first. This presentation lends itself to allowing participants, if they want, to raise their hand and say, hey, I have a question. Go ahead, right in the middle. I don't care. I can stop the presentation because it's set in modules and it doesn't rely as much on the flow. I can stop here and go on to the next point without losing anything. But some presentations, you don't want those interruptions. You want to save questions till the end, and especially when time's a concern. So the summary for the basics is you have 30 seconds. You want to make every word count. You want to get to what's in it for me quickly because, like I said, we're a selfish society. People want to listen to things that will benefit them. So how will it benefit your audience? You have to let them know that immediately. Ask questions to get your audience thinking, to keep them on their toes. And sometimes those questions you want an answer because now if you ask a question of the audience and you're waiting for an answer and you get somebody to answer, they're thinking, uh-oh, he or she may ask another question. I better be listening. So it kind of conditions your audience to listen a little bit more attentively if you're asking questions throughout the presentation. And evoke pain and swoop in to save the day. Be that knight in shining armor. So you want to have them realize that they have that problem. And by all means, make sure they know where you're heading with the presentation and what is coming next. Now, there are some nuances, and these are some things that we'll learn about. And the first thing we're going to talk about, you've seen several times, and that is a blank screen. If you're using PowerPoint and you're on a stage or in a conference room and you go to a blank screen, People will turn and look at you. They won't be reading your slides. They won't be looking at the slides. And especially if you know something like the back of your hand and you don't need a slide, put that blank screen up there. That way people will be forced to focus on you, pay attention to you. Because too many people put so much up on slides when they're doing a PowerPoint presentation, and the audience is just too busy reading it. What they put on that slide is something exactly what the speaker is saying. So when you have that blank screen, it brings attention back to you, and that's important to get that attention back on you. And use it when you're talking about things you don't need a slide for, because many times we don't need that slide. We use it as a crutch, and now people have something else to look at. You want the attention to be on you when you're speaking, not on the screen. When they're reading the screen, they could miss something important you're saying because they're too busy concentrating what is on that screen. This is a very important one, and I call this be you focused. That's YOU focus. And what do I mean by that? You want to be focusing on the individuals in the audience, not them as a group and not yourself. So the first thing you do in that, you eliminate as many I statements as you can. I know here in the United States, I is the most commonly used word. I this, I that. You're not here to hear about me. You're not here about Kevin did this, Kevin did that. This presentation is about you, the audience. It's not about me. So you want to make it about your audience. And the less you use the word I, the better off you'll be in your presentations. And talk to your audience as individuals. So when I say you focused, I'm going to go back to my beginning, and I did that intro for a reason. Do you remember the last time you spoke to a group, well, or an individual? I said, do you remember? I did not say, do any of you remember? Now, it's a very subtle point, but when I say, have any of you or do any of you remember, I am talking to you as a group. And now you feel that. You feel like he's talking to all of us. If I say, do you remember the last time? It's a very subtle difference, but you feel that I'm talking to you as an individual as opposed to you as a group. And that's very important. And psychological studies have bore this out, that your audience feels more like you're talking with them when you do that, as opposed to saying, have any of you, as opposed to do you. So very subtle difference, but very powerful in making your audience feel like you're talking directly to them as opposed to talking at a group. Eye contact. This is always a problem for a lot of people. How do I do eye contact? Who do I look at? It depends on the size of the room. When you're talking to an individual, you want to make sure that you don't stare them down and you're not looking at them directly all the time. You have to break that contact. Otherwise, it makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable. But when you're in a large room, you want to make sure you make contact with the various parts of the room. And when you're on a call like this, on a Zoom call, a Teams call, whatever it is, you look at the camera. I'm looking at the camera as opposed to slides right now because that gives a little bit more of an impression of eye contact. It's impossible to make eye contact on Zoom, but I can look at the camera where when you see my picture, it does look at least like I'm looking at you, and I'm not looking down like this. I'm not looking at slides. I'm not looking up or off to the side. I am looking at you. So the other thing to remember when you're in a group, you don't have to make eye contact with everybody. Find friendly faces in various parts of the room. If it's a small conference room, conference table, focus a little bit more on the people that you're trying to sell. If it's your manager, if it's the operations manager, the plant manager, whoever that may be. But also go around to different parts of the room and look for the friendly faces, the people that are smiling, the people that are paying attention. And when you have that person who's paying attention, especially when you're doing a large audience, if you're on a stage or looking or talking to a larger audience, uh, finding that friendly face that you can relate to, at least you're looking at that side of the room. And now you look at the middle part of the room, you look at the other side of the room, whatever it may be. And if it's a larger conference room, the same way. But rotate your eye contact a little bit and keep it for 10, 15, 20 seconds, then move off that person is not to make them feel uncomfortable. But you want to make sure you're looking at all parts of the room as opposed to just one spot the entire time if you can. And then randomly rotate between them. Don't go left, right, left, right, left, right, center. Just kind of randomly pick different areas of the room to focus on, find that friendly face. And if it's a different face this time, look at that one. It doesn't always have to be the same person, but try to find somebody that is paying attention, that is sitting up, and use that as your person of eye contact. If you're moving, it's hard in a small conference room to move, and you can't really move too well in a Zoom call unless you're standing up when you're doing it. But avoid moving when speaking unless you're moving with purpose. I think we've all seen that person that paces back and forth on the stage as they're talking, and you're wondering, I wonder if they're wearing out the carpet that they're walking on because they just go back and forth, back and forth. And it's hard to follow somebody when they are moving around. And when you move with purpose, you can use it to create transitions or to have signals. So let me give you an example. If I am talking in a small conference room and I stop and I'm talking to you about my first point, stand still and talk about that point from that person or from that point. And then at the end of that, what you can do is stop that point, move when you're ready to go on to point two, move to another place on the in the conference room or on the stage, and then start your next point. That does two things. It signals to the audience, here's a transition. And it also gives them time to digest what you just finished talking about. And I see something just appeared in chat. Is there a question in chat there, Ian? I can't see it there.
There isn't. There isn't. It's someone that had to leave.
Okay. Very good. So it can signal a transition for you, and that's important. People know, oh, the speaker is moving on to another point. They're moving on to a different point. And it also creates the opportunity later on for visual recall. And what do I mean by visual recall? When I am, some people are visual learners. There are several types of learning. And some people learn by doing, other people learn by listening, by reading. Some people learn visually. So if I am talking about something from a certain point in the conference room or on the stage, and I say, remember when I was talking about moving with purpose? If I point to the spot that I was delivering that point on moving with purpose, the people that have visual recall, that learn visually, it will make them remember that just by me pointing to that spot in the conference room or on the stage. So it can be used as a tool to create a visual recall for somebody, which is very important. And it helps people that learn visually learn a little bit better. Power of the pause. Pauses allow the audience to catch up with you. If you're just constantly talking, going point to point to point and point, the audience gets tired. They can't catch your points. And if you don't pause between major points or after you make a major point, the audience is trying to digest what you just said while you're going on to your next point. Give them time to keep up with you. Give them time to digest that important point. So if I make an important point and I finish that, pause. Count to 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Give them time to let that point sink in or to realize you're transitioning. And they give the audience time to fill in the blank. So if I ask a question, do you remember the last time, whatever I say, and I pause after asking that question, it gives you time to think in your head, okay, I remember the last time I did this. I remember the last time this piece of equipment was down, or that I was struggling with my budget, or we didn't have a solution to whatever problem it was. Give them time to let that sink in because that is important. Pausing allows the audience to stay up with you and keep up with your presentation. Admit your mistakes. We have all made mistakes before, even when speaking, no matter how well your presentation is going. If you make a mistake, as soon as you realize you made a mistake, admit it because we're all human and your audience can identify with you if you're human. You don't want to necessarily have them think, oh gosh, this person's, trying to fool me because that was definitely wrong. If you realize it's a mistake, admit it. And it keeps people from piling on because if somebody says, hey, wait, that's not true. I got this fact here. Say, you know what? You may be right. I'm sorry. I'll have to research that better. It generally will stop them from piling on. And you don't want that. You'll lose your audience that way. So the nuances in summary, sometimes the blank screen is very powerful. Use it occasionally, especially when you know exactly what you're talking about. Be you focused, and that's the YOU version focused, and talk to your audience. Don't make it about you, make it about your audience, and don't be talking to the group. Have any of you. It's do you remember or have you ever? Use selective eye contact. So pick the right places in the room. Or if you're on Zoom, you have to pretty much look at the camera most of the time if you can. Move with purpose. So don't be moving and talking because number one, especially in a room, your voice will trail off if you're walking over this way and your head is turned, or if you're walking this direction, your voice will trail off a little bit and the audience won't hear you. And they're distracted by that movement because now they're having to digest not only your words, but that movement. Where's he going? What's that movement for? Where's she going? So you want to make sure you plant for your point. So you pick a point or a place in the conference room on the stage to make your first point. Pick another place for your second point. Pick a third place for your third point. And you can go back to another point and make another position and make another point. But you want to use that to allow you to create transitions as well. So as I'm walking from point A to point B, I'm silent. And then I go on to my next point. That gives the audience time to digest what I just said. And that goes into the next summary item is the power of the pause. You pause between major points or you pause after questions. And then don't be afraid to admit mistakes. We all make them and we're all only human. And if the audience sees that, then that way they will be able to identify with you a little bit more because like I said, they've made mistakes too. So adapting to your audience, we all have to talk to different types of audiences. Sometimes we're talking to plant management, senior management. Other times we're talking to production folks, operations. Other times you're talking to your manager. Other times we're talking to maintenance folks, our employees, people that we're trying to sell on what we're doing. And they all are looking for slightly different things in the presentation, but they all have one commonality too. And that one commonality is get to what's in it for me right away. And we covered this early and we're covering it again because it is important. With senior management, it's going to be emphasis on the bottom line. If you're talking to a vice president, you're talking to a plant manager, they want to know how will this impact safety? How will this impact quality? How will this impact costs? How will this impact efficiency? Our environmental impact, whatever it is, how will it affect the metrics that we're measured on as a company? How will it affect those? So you want to get to what it will benefit, what it will change immediately with plant management. You want to be brief. Their time is valuable. When you have a meeting with senior management, you're not going to spend an hour like I'm spending today talking about how to become a better speaker. You can go bang, bang, bang and get to the points. If they want more detail, they will ask. Be prepared to give the detail, but don't go into this big detailed presentation on how this design will do this, how it was designed, unless they ask about it. They just want to know you have this new method, you have this this modification, this piece of equipment that will do this, this, or this. You have this new maintenance practice that will help be more efficient, and we're going to go from preventive maintenance to more predictive based model. They want to know what it is, not, what are all the types of predictive maintenance? What are the types of preventive maintenance we're doing? If they do want that, definitely they will ask. Just explain to them what you're going to do and how it will affect the bottom line. You want to be non-technical unless they ask for the technical, and then educate them a little bit. Just we have technologies out there that can be predictive in nature. And without going into too much detail, you have oil analysis, you have vibration analysis, you have some ultrasonic analysis to detect leaks. So there are different types of technology that we can get ahead of the curve on. Don't dig into the weeds on how each of those work. Let them know what the technology is, a little bit about it, but don't go too far into it unless they ask, because their time is extremely valuable. And I'm not saying your time's not valuable, that non-manager's time isn't valuable, but they have a full day and they're used to dealing with the bullet points. And if they want to ask questions, they definitely will. And use data and evidence. So we can reduce, for example, I'm going to go with the ultrasonic leak detectors. When I was at Anheuser-Busch, we bought every brewery 2 ultrasonic leak detectors. And if some of you don't know what they do, when air leaks out of an airline, it emits a high pitch frequency that you can't hear with the human ear too well. You do hear some air leaks when you walk through a plant, but there are some that you can't hear. And when you point this device at it, this gun, and you're wearing a pair of headphones, you find where the air leaks are. You can narrow down exactly where the air leaks are. You tag them, you fix them, and then you go on from there. And when we gave these to all our breweries, we had 12 breweries in the United States at the time. Every single brewery was able to take at least one air compressor offline. Well, what did that do? That saved in maintenance costs. That saved in parts costs, electricity costs, the cost of running a compressor. It gave us a spare compressor. We didn't have to necessarily install a new compressor because we had all those leaks out there. It made our equipment run more efficiently. Well, I can't go into that deep story with a plant manager, but what I can say is, I know there's one company that bought these ultrasonic leak detectors, and they were able to eliminate enough leaks that they eliminated at least one, or they were able to shut off at least one compressor at each of their facilities. Some of them were able to shut off 2. And I think we can see those same gains. So that long story that I just told you would not work for a senior manager, but just telling them, here's a piece of technology, here's what it does, and here's what it did for somebody else. I think it can do it for us too, in just a few sentences. That's the type of message you want to give to senior management. And they will take that and run with it. Once again, if they have questions, I'll ask further questions, but just give them that high level summary. And if possible, give them an alternative solution. I had a manager one time when I interviewed to transfer from one brewery to another. When I was at Anheuser-Busch, the plant manager was interviewing me, and he said, "Kevin, what's wrong with this scenario? I ask you a question, you come in, well, here is the answer that will solve the problem, Earl." He said, "No, always give the manager options. You know, if they feel they're backed in the corner, you're telling them that's the only way they can do it. A lot of senior managers don't like that. So what you might do in the example I was giving about the predictive maintenance, we can go around and use this and hopefully solve all these problems. Or what we can do too is we can just go with our ears and try to listen and find as many of these leaks as we can. We may not get as many, but it will cost a little bit less, and we can at least solve some of the problems with air. And now give them that solution or two solutions, and then they can make that choice. They can make the choice not to invest in the technology, but you try to influence them to invest in that technology. But don't tell them this is the only solution you have. Try to give them that alternative solution as well as the solution that you're offering. When you're talking to production or operations management, even maintenance management, once again, you have to get to that what's in it for me right away. Here is where you make them feel a little bit of pain. Yeah, do you remember last week when we had this production line down or this pump down or whatever it was that wasn't running and we weren't able to meet production goals. We weren't able to provide our customer with these products or whatever it may be. You want to make them feel a little bit of pain and then come in and say, I've been thinking about that, and here are some ways that we can solve that problem. Address potential risks and mitigation. So what are the risks of your solution? Not, we're going to have to spend this much money to do this. But in the long term, I think you're going to see the return on investment, the ROI on that. And here's what happens. We're going to monitor this along the way. And as we go through these steps, we will make sure if things start, not working the way we plan, we will adjust the plan as we go along. And have a clear path. You have to say, here's the plan. We've got this. It's going to take X amount of time. I have these many people that can do this. Here's the training we're going to do, whatever it may be. You want to let them know you've thought about how you will implement this and that you have that clear plan. When you're trying to sell this to them, they have to know that you're prepared and you're ready to go. And get them saying yes, this comes straight from my favorite book that I read once a year. It was given to me as a gift when I became senior plant engineer back in 1992. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's by Dale Carnegie. And if you haven't read the book, I highly recommend it. It gives you keys to speaking to people as well. But you get the other person saying yes. Do you remember last week and that was down? Yes. It was painful, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Once somebody starts saying yes several times in a row, it's easier for them to say that next yes and not say no. And once again, this gets into psychology. I'm not going to get into psychology too much. I had to take some, even though I'm an engineer by degree, I had to take some psychology courses in school when I was younger. But getting the other person saying yes makes it easier for them to say that next yes. So it helps you get that buy-in as opposed to getting that no, where if you go in and just start asking for something immediately without them saying yes to a few things, it's easier for them to say no than when they are in the habit now of saying yes. Doesn't always make sense to you up front, but it works, believe me. When you're talking to your manager, emphasize departmental goals. You don't have to go to the high level goals that the plant manager has necessarily, or the operations manager if you're not reporting directly to operations. Emphasize the goals and how it will affect your department goals. Once again, you have to present a clear plan again. Highlight success stories. You heard me talk about the ultrasonic leak detectors and that, how this can succeed. Hopefully you've done your research on what you want to do on, how predictive maintenance can help or how this type of maintenance can help, how adding details to our PMs can help us be more consistent in our PMs, how doing this type of PM will work better than the types of PMs we're doing right now, or changing the frequency will be better. And then use data where you're not using as much data with the plant management or with the operations manager. Have that data for your direct manager. Now, make sure you have that data ready as a backup when you're talking to senior management, when you're talking to operations management, but use the data with your manager because your manager will understand that data a lot better. They're more technical. And prepare for detailed questions. Your manager will probably ask a lot of detailed questions. They're going to probably ask harder questions than the operations manager or the senior manager will. So you want to make sure with your manager, you're ready to get down to the details. Now, when you're talking to your employees, people that report directly to you or people they don't necessarily have to be with you. When I was at Anheuser-Busch, I oversaw maintenance at all the breweries. The maintenance managers didn't report to me. They reported to the resident engineer at their respective breweries, but I had responsibility for them. So I had to let them know how it would simplify their job. And I had to get them to want to do what I was trying to get them to do. So emphasize how it will make their job better, how it will make their job easier or more impactful. Encourage open discussion. Don't just tell them, hey, we're going to do this. Here's what we're going to do. What are your thoughts on this? You get them going back and forth and talking about them because you want them to feel and know that they were part of that decision, that they were part of the decision-making process. They were part of whatever change is coming on. It's human nature to be resistive to change. So what you want to do is to make sure that you take down some of those barriers, you take down some of that resistance, give them the opportunity to voice their concerns and address those. Outline clear implementation steps. How are we going to do this? How will it affect them? How will it affect them? Will it get a little bit worse to start or will it get better immediately? A lot of times when we make changes, it's a little bit harder at first. I'm helping a company right now that I'm consulting with change from all, you're going to laugh at this, but they do all their work orders on spreadsheets and emails and Word documents. And they're implementing a CMMS, a computerized maintenance management system. And it is hard for them to learn how to use this, to put things in a computer. But I have been working with them to explain to them how it will be better, how all this information will be in one place. It's not on this technician's hard drive and this technician's hard drive, and none of it's all in one single place. And how it will be so much easier to get information, how we can have all these manuals and drawings out there for them. And you're not relying on your own personal library. Everything's there. And you're not shuffling these papers, trying to find papers. It it takes time, but it is painful for them to go through some of these changes to start. If it's going to be painful, let them know because you don't want to start implementing a change and have them say, you didn't tell me it was going to be painful. You didn't tell me it was going to be this hard. Let them know up front that it may be a little bit tough, but we will get there. And long term, it's going to be easier. Addressing the personal challenges, that's what I just talked about. And ask what they need from you. How can I help you in this change? What do you need from me to get your buy-in to make sure this works? So that's basically what I wanted to cover this morning. I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Ian, I see there's a 2 next to chat, so there's something else in chat. Is there a question in the chat or?
It's a session. It's a question. Well, kind of a question,
Okay.
but it's about the handout of the slides. And yes, we'll record this session, and you will have access to it. So
Well, Ian, I will send you these slides, and that way you can give those to everybody
okay,
that was
fantastic.
on the call. Or if somebody
Cool.
watches the recording later and say, "Hey, do you have the slides?" Maybe you just put, wherever you put the recording, we have the slides. If you want the slides from this presentation, uh, just email Ian Collier at whatever your email address is. I've
Eventfulgroup.com.
emailed you before, but I don't know off the top of my head.
No worries.
Any questions?
Any questions, folks?
And just unmute yourself and ask.
Don't be quiet.
And
Don't be shy.
I'm gonna stop sharing so we just can see each other. Did you find it helpful?
Was it helpful, people? That's Nikki. Thank you. Yep, nodding. We've got a nod. We've got 1 nod. That's always good. 2 nods, 3 nods, actually. Any questions, folks? Craig, Gary, Nike?
I seem to have messed up my view somehow. No, it was great. Thank you very much. Really good to just get some just kind of solid, like, I don't know what the word is, like practical advice about the topic. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other thoughts?
And Ian, before you close the call, I'm going to end with something too. So don't cut the call off before I get
definitely not. Definitely not. Any other thoughts, questions, folks, before I hand over to Kevin to wrap up? No? Yes? Okay. Okay, I will take the, so I think you've gone through everything, Kevin. That was very, very useful. It certainly was for me. So thank you so much for that. Folks, if you have any questions or would like to contact Kevin, please just drop me a line. Ian.collier@theeventfulgroup.com or Ian@mainstreamcommunity.com. I'm sure you've probably got my email address. We will be uploading this session into the Mainstream Community Network. If you haven't already joined, please make sure you do. It is just a www.mainstream.com and then register for free. There are heaps of other sessions like this, and also a hell of a lot of content that is certainly applicable to some of the stuff that Kevin talked about, but definitely to you as a community. I know that we are coming towards the end. The session, if you haven't already, please have a look at the website as well about the event we've got in October in the UK, down in sunny Birmingham. I've heard it's sunny today. And if you want to join, we have fantastic prices on tickets right now. So we are full steam ahead and getting a hell of a lot of traction and interest. So if you want to join us in a packed room full of people like yourself, it's definitely something you should be coming along to. I'm going to wrap up now. I want to thank you.
Email address.
Yeah,
Ian, I put my email address in chat if anybody would like to. Feel free to email me if you have follow-up questions, even if it's a week or two from now. I am heading to Mainstream in Australia next week, so I might be a little bit delayed, but I will respond to any emails that you send if you have follow-up questions, or if you have anything that you'd like me to answer, I'd be happy to.
Fantastic. Wonderful, folks. And so thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to see you all. And I'll hand out, Kevin, if you want to did you want to wrap up now, and then we will close?
So I end sessions like this a lot of times with an exercise. And I'm going to ask every one of you to just, well, cross your arms in front of you. I'm going to just kind of move back and stand up. Cross your arms in front of you like this, like you would normally do. Okay, and now I'm going to ask you to look down, and which arm is on the top? How many of you have your right arm on top? Raise your hand. How many of you have your left arm on top? Raise your hand. Okay, now I'm going to ask you, reverse it. If you had your right arm on top, put your left arm on top, and vice versa. How does that feel?
Just wrong.
It's very weird, Kevin.
Yeah.
Very weird.
It's
Yeah,
just
you have
wrong.
to really think about it.
Okay, now, what I just presented to you today, when you go out and try to practice it, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel just wrong, as somebody said. But if you go every day and cross your arms the opposite way, it'll start to feel comfortable. The next day will be a little bit easier to do. The next day a little bit easier. The next day a little bit easier. And now it'll become habit. You may start crossing the other arm in front as opposed to the one you were doing today. So I see Ian shaking his head no. But it takes practice. You know, if you practice some of these things, it may feel a little bit awkward, but with time, it will become more natural, and you're going to be able to be you focused. You're going to be able to pause now and then. You're going to be able to do eye contact the way you want to do it. Practice these one or two at a time. Don't try to do them all at once. And you will become a more influential and more powerful speaker. So I appreciate your time today. And if any of you are coming down to Melbourne next week, hit me up and tell me you were at this. And hopefully I see you again in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, folks. Great to see you. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Cheers, folks.
There you go, Ian.
Cheers,
See
everyone.
you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.